You know, it's been quite a while since we've had a casual conversation about trophies, and when I say we, I really mean me because, you know, it's just me talking for an extended period of time, and you're just sitting there watching. But, you know, let's just bask in this parasocial relationship because I've not done this in, I think, over a year was the last one where we did something where we kind of went over things that I've been playing and also trophies I've been earning. And that's the other weird part of this, too, because actually so much of my trophies at this point have all been on video documented in some way. But there are things in between that, so let's go over it because the last video I stopped at Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, and since then there's been things in between. So let's just run through and have a casual conversation. So to start off on PSN profiles, we have Ghost of Tsushima on PS4, very low percentage. We'll get to that in a minute. After that was when Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart came out. Platinum in 3 weeks, 1 day. Now you might be wondering why that took so long. That is just where I am nowadays with life in general, right? So this game takes like, I don't know, 15 hours, maybe 20 if you go really slow and take your time. And I am generally on that side where I do go very slow. I like to check every nook and cranny, and sometimes I just kind of go slow and bask in gorgeous looking games, and that's exactly what Rift Apart is. In fact, you know, for how often people tend to, you know, complain about these new consoles and how there's nothing that feels next gen. I mean, there's some examples. Rift Apart is one of them. The game looks bonkers, but it's also so great to have a big budget, like standard PS2 platformer still getting these releases nowadays. And so Rift Apart was so good, but that is why that took 3 weeks and 1 day. So you do have to remember that with this channel I'm still pretty much on my own, so I do all the you know, filming, recording, scripts, editing, all that junk, right? So it's still been that way for LTPS and Tuesdays. And so normally with game time, it's a bit slower for me nowadays. But Rift Apart, awesome. Final Fantasy VII, the original one, so this is the port on PS4. I was meaning for a while to go back to the original game, and I figured, you know, obviously I should go back to this one because, or this version, because a lot of massive quality of life improvements. Also, I apologize if you keep hearing like this cracking noise. It's showing up in LTPS videos as well. It's this desk. It's getting very old, and I'm going to be replacing it soon, so I apologize on that. But back on topic, FF7. This game makes it so much, this port I should say, makes it a lot easier because you can play at 3 times speed, you can elect to avoid random encounters, you can also keep your break limit maxed out, so you can always use those whenever you want. Just a healthier way to go through the game instead of bloating it out, you know, unnecessarily. And I wanted to go back to it because you know, it's been so long, but I also forgot just how wild the story gets when you're out of Midgar. So I wanted a refresher on that, and that's what I did. Fantastic game, still holds up. That is a good version to play. Next is Tsushima Director's Cut. So that's the difference here. Now you might be wondering, like, okay, so what's going on? Like, you didn't finish the game originally? I didn't. I obviously started it back then. Loved what I played thus far, but it was something where you have to put the game down. It was doing something else at the time, and you know, at that point, I mean, there was just so much happening with PlayStation 5, and then PS5 came out, had to, you know, play all that software. Once the director's cut was announced, it's like, okay, that's the one I'll play. So I transferred my save file over, and the thing is, I don't mind missing out on the auto pop here. So some would say, why didn't you do it on PS4? Finish it there, get as close to 100 as possible, then move your save file, auto pop on PS5. I prefer to play the best version if possible. I really don't mind the auto pop, or I don't need it per se. Although I will admit I should have done it for this game because there's like so many minimal differences between the PS4 and PS5 version that this was the one game where I should have just stayed on PS4, because you're really only getting DualSense features and cards on PS5, which really is not quite enough to, you know, to, I guess, give up the potential of 2 platinums. But I did finish most of the game. I still got to actually go to Iki Island and Legends, which I may or may not even ever do to begin with, because multiplayer, gonna multiplayer, you know what I mean? So, but here's where we get into the 30 Platinums Part 2 video, which that was all on video, so 30 Platinums, and this is kind of what I was saying earlier, is that I've had so much stuff documented on video now at this point, so 30 Platinums Part 1, 2, and then after this was... because this challenge ended at 199 Platinums, which I did not intend on doing. So some folks saw that and they were like, oh, that bothers me. Why did you do that, Ryan? I did not mean to. I wanted to do like more than 30, I wanted to do 33, 35 Platinums, somewhere around there, just a lot more than a decent amount more than the last video. But basically, I ended off at 199, and that worked out perfect anyway because I made 200 Jack 3, and that was also on video. That was actually around Jack's anniversary, and that was the one Jack game that I still have not gone back to do the platinum on PlayStation 4. Actually, I still need to do Jack X as well, so I still don't have a full set across PS3, 4, and Vita, but I got most of them now at this point with Jack 3, and that was on video as well. And there's more coming up that we'll talk about. But after that was Grand Theft Auto 5, another one where it's on video because this is the PlayStation 3 version. Why is that on there? Excuse me, that's my eBay notifications going off. Always on the hunt for video games. God, now I lost my train of thought. GTA 5 PS3. The servers were going offline, so had to check in on it right before it goes. Never played Heists. It's online, so shocker, but I popped 1 or 2 bronze during that video, and that's why this jumped back up to the top of my list. Now going into more leisure stuff, as in it was not for videos or anything, I just, free time, 8 hours and 14 minutes, so we're on the shorter side. But The Tourist, the PS5 version, which runs at 8K, super samples to 4K, gorgeous looking game. It's the kind of title where the presentation pulls you in. And little unique fact here, this game is not a platinum, or it doesn't have a platinum. It's a 100% PSN title, which nowadays is very, very rare. So weird how that happened over time, right? Where PS3 is actually kind of a tough console in general to get platinums on. Games were so brutal with estimated time, multiple playthroughs, missables, glitch trophies, of course, and most things on PSN were standard 100% PSN games. Nowadays, you never see that. It used to be something where if you're a developer, you had to make a case to Sony as to why your game had enough content to warrant a platinum, and that's not true anymore. Pretty much any dev can get a platinum if they want, and that's why we see all that shovelware on PSN. But if you're a developer, you want a platinum at the very minimum. There is a certain audience that's going to care about that stuff, and so it might not be a massive audience, but enough to, warrant doing it for a few extra sales. But The Tourist does not have a platinum, and so that's my first 100% PSN game in a very, very long time. After that is a short hike, and this one does have a platinum. It's one of those more unique games where it's 11 gold, 1 silver, no bronze, and it's a full plat. But a short hike was also kind of like The Tourist, where I think presentation really sells it, and there is a very unique, cute little story in there. I keep saying unique a lot, but that is sort of where I guess that's what I gravitate towards nowadays, something that has a bit of personality and sticks out from the rest, which, this is obviously all in chronological order of when I played them. You might be wondering, oh, hey, you didn't play this big game, that big game. Well, as some of you know nowadays, I do try to make sure I do games that I'm going to 100% on my main profile, and I play things that I'm not going to fully complete on a separate account. I've got 4 different accounts that I use nowadays, so I'll usually just play the first few hours of something on another account, or sometimes I'll play things to completion, but this is what I save for doing the full list is my main account, which you could argue is kind of dumb, because then you're not really showing your entire resume, so to speak, of what I've played, but I don't know. It's just what I do. Next is Katamari Damacy Reroll. Now, I also mentioned this during, what was it? I was talking about my favorite PlayStation games to replay. Over time, these are games that I just love replaying over and over again. That is Melissa scratching her her cat post. Katamari I love. This is a game I always go back to, and so I was due for another playthrough. Of course, I'm going to do it on PS4. Pretty manageable platinum as well. It's a short game. The tough thing in here is just rolling up everything in the game, which, you know, if you miss like one or two things, kind of a pain to find out what you're, you know, missing and to go back to the level and find it. Next is Hades. 2 weeks, 2 days. Very addictive roguelite for sure. It's just... man, this game absolutely does hook you, and so if you're into that sort of thing, especially where for a roguelite where each session is anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, could be shorter, of course, if you die quicker, but it's just enough to where it gives you that one more try sensation, alongside the fact that this game is the full package. You know, not only is the gameplay so good, it's rich, deep, rewarding. It's also very tight, and you don't ever feel like it's your fault. So there's a lot of room there to grow and understand it. But when you die, you're excited to go back and you know, advance the plot line and talk to people and build relationships, and you know, you're just itching to see new dialogue. And so when a run takes, you know, 15-20 minutes, you do that one more time mentality, and you just can't wait to hear more about the story. Next up is Zero Dawn. I was working on the Frozen Wilds, still not finished. I wanted to try and get it done before Forbidden West, so that's still one to go back to. And then we get to Returnal, so this was also all on video. You know, I don't want to spend too much time here, if only because I've already gushed about Returnal so much during LTPS. It's still my favorite PS5 game so far. It's that good, loved it, and it's certainly like Hades, where it's just... man, yeah, I'm still super big on Returnal, no doubt about that. And then going into Forbidden West, so the game finally came out. Not a full 100, because they did put out a new little pack for like a new playthrough, a new game plus. So I'll do that eventually, not dying to go back to it. But for Forbidden West, I think the game's awesome. I think it's fantastic, better than Zero Dawn in pretty much every way. Story is, I think, the one place which I can see the viewpoint of it being, well, that's always subjective, or I should say highly subjective, but one where some could argue that it, you know, takes some weird turns and it's got some uneven pacing. But for the most part, you know, holistically, Forbidden West for me was just awesome. I really don't get the whole, like, I don't know, it's weird. I feel like there's been a lot of complaints about it now with the game finally out there, but I'm just not seeing it. Like Zero Dawn, when it came out, was you know, kind of a big exciting thing to have such a high budget new IP, which publishers nowadays are very afraid to do. We finally got a sequel to that game, and you know, I think it was better in most ways, although I would agree there's some annoying parts, like the intros being a little slow, or Aloy talks too much to herself, but I was big on this game. Did take me a bit, but overall, great time. Same with Deathloop. I really don't understand this one. I mean, it's weird because this game, I think, had a much larger delta on the reviews coming out. Generally, across the board, was reviewed very well. And then people played it, and it's like, wow, why were the reviews so high? Didn't like it at all, or it's mid, or yeah, it was great, but not fantastic. I'm generally more on the positive side of like, yeah, I thought it was like really good, especially because I do think it was tough to sell the game in the first place. Like the entire pre-release cycle, was that they were trying to explain what the loop was and what you're doing in the game day in and day out to try and like figure out the story. It is hard to explain, but I do find that they largely accomplish their goal of trying to create this interesting plot line that's connected to gameplay in a way that most games have not done before, and I do think it plays to their benefit for what they were trying to, you know, the story they were trying to tell. Having said that, the story, I think, near the end does fall flat, but otherwise, trophies, it's like 10, 15 hours, very approachable. I had a good time with it. Next would be Bigsnax. This was the Bigsnax DLC. I still love this game. It's kind of like Returnal, where it's one of my... It really is one of my favorite, like, PS5 games so far. But, you know, it's not like it's really a PS5 game. It's like it's everywhere, and it's just... But it's a game with so much personality, so that DLC, which was free, awesome. Had a great time. Unpacking, this is also something where it's a very simple, easy game, 4 hours, 32 minutes. It's more of a, you're there for the story, you're there for the environmental storytelling, so it's not in your face. You're just kind of like unpacking things out of boxes, and a very easy turn your head off kind of game where the story is not hard to pick up what they're laying down, so that was good. After that was Sifu, pretty high-profile indie that Sony was touting around for a bit, and this game is really good, but unsurprisingly, the thing is, this isn't really a fighting game in the sense of like you would consider this more of an just action-adventure game, technically, but it is a fighter where it's fighting mechanics, and we all know I'm not very good at those, so this game's tough, really tough. I tried to play on the normal setting. I beat the second boss, but after that, the game was really whooping me pretty good, and this was around the time that the disc came out, and also the new patch went out where that introduced a new setting so that the aging mechanic wasn't nearly as aggressive, so you wouldn't be like completely booted out of the level in like 2 seconds. And I had to set it there. I have no shame in that. I'm not very good with games that have that kind of deep fighting mechanic level of, being able to not, like, I can do parries and things like that, but when we're talking about more complex combos and, being able to block high and low, like, it never clicks for me. So I really enjoyed the game, but it's something where for me, I certainly needed it to be a bit easier. I'm sure I could have done it through the main setting and just stuck with it, but at a certain point, you got to value your time and effort versus how much fun you're having. So either way, it was still a really good game that I wholeheartedly recommend to anybody. And this is where we get into more things that were on videos. So the PS1 Classics on the PS Plus Premium relaunch, so the new Classics program on PlayStation 4 and 5. Ape Escape, Siphon Filter, and Hot Shots Golf. So that was all on video. And, the only regret here, because, like, obviously this is cool, playing PS1 games with trophies, and they're principally the original PS1 games. There's a cool rewind mechanic. But the whole time, if you remember, I was warning people, when Sony does this new thing with Classics, hey, there's no trophies. I'm sorry, but maybe put it in your head that these games are not going to have trophies. In hindsight, I should have said it'll be optional, because of course they'll remove the mandate in the interest of having developers support it, because adding trophies takes much longer than people think. So in hindsight, I should have said optional, because it turns out a very select few games do have trophies. And the funny thing is, it's really just these and a few others. So it was fun to do it. It was fun to do it either way, though. And then after that was Cuphead, the new Last Course DLC. I just love this game so much. I think it largely speaks for itself at this point, and it was just nice to finally have the DLC out. And now we're finally getting our physical copies of this game. A lot of waiting, but worth it. And then the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. So I was in the camp of never playing this game. And it's not like, normally for me nowadays, it's like the hierarchy is like PlayStation I tend to play the most of, just purely at this point because of the channel, obviously. But then I'll play a lot of Switch, a little bit of Xbox and PC, but those are usually on the lower side for me. So it's not like I didn't want to get to this game, but by the time a console version came out, it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll play for trophies. And it's at 90% because if you want a real legit platinum for this game, there's a trophy in there for not playing the game for 10 years. So play it, put it down, wait 10 years, get yourself a legit platinum. You could alter the clock settings on your PlayStation to unlock it, but I figured, why not? Let's do this the right way. And since you're watching this video, I'll give you a little inside sneak peek here. If I somehow still have a YouTube career in 10 years, you will see a playthrough of this. So I don't know if that's ever actually going to happen or not, but I did film my playthrough up to this point, and if I get a legit platinum, maybe you'll see that down the road where I'm all gray because I'm already getting gray hairs. Stray, the 2022 Game of the Year, 3 days, 2 hours. This was also on video. I think I've spent enough time gushing about certain games, but it's not a lie when I say I really had a great time with it, and it's also one of my favorite PS5 games so far. After that, another on-video situation, so Shadowfall and Killzone Mercenary. You can see for Mercenary, platinum in 8 years, 11 months, because these games had their online server shutdown notice finally go out. I made the mistake of waiting too long, so I only had like 5 days near the very end to like finally work on them. Mercenary, I knew I had a chance because I had one left for 100 online matches. Very simple. And I also figured, let me just knock out the full thing because I had like 2 other bronze and single player to do. But that was a nearly 10-year platinum that I finally finished. In Shadowfall, I did not think I would be able to catch up enough to secure the platinum. And I kind of did because I knocked out the online trophies that take way too long, and that was a lot of weird boosting. And there's one DLC pack that I was not able to do in time, so I'll never be able to get 100% in this game. But when I'm finally ready to go back to clean up the single player, because there's a lot of single player I didn't do, then I'll finally have the platinum. I wanted to get the platinum for the main video to say I finally got these 2 platinums, but then I got burned out of Killzone because that was like way too much Killzone for 5 days. But that was also a fun little thing that I did to myself for 5 days. After that, Death's Door, 4 months and 2 weeks. This was like, it didn't need to take that long. And I remember, like, I looked up, how long it would take. It said 15 hours. I said, great, that's a weekend. Started it, and not only was the progress so slow, now I liked the game a lot, but it was so slow that by the end, I did I feel like I'm beating a dead horse by saying did a video or I did something else or remember that time I did this video. But recently the PS5 remote play video, testing remote play, the last trophy I needed there was to do a new playthrough with the worst weapon in the game. So it's like, it's already kind of like a challenging game on its own, but there's a goal for that. And so I figured, let me finish up and clean up that platinum on that video. And I did that all through remote play. And then next up is Ragnarok. I'm still working through the game. I've got like 30 something hours on it. So I'm filming this right before this is going to get uploaded, or like the night before. And man, it's an incredible game. But considering this is like the holidays, and I also got some personal stuff going on that's just been taking up a lot of my time. So I've been trying so hard to squeeze in like 4 or 5 hours here and there. So like every week I'm like really committing to like work on it, but it's just so good. Thankfully, I got a few days coming up where I think I'm gonna get this knocked out, which at least it's not gonna like get put on the back burner for what is such a high profile game on PlayStation 5. But man, this game is hitting on every cylinder without a doubt. And now we're caught up, so yeah, there's some things in here, like very big third-party stuff like Elden Ring, which is not in here. Elden Ring is going to get played on the main profile for sure, but I did want to like dip my toes in a bit because it's like, such a big game that you kind of, it's hard to like not jump into that. And plus, well, and this ties back in with Ragnarok, but like also I'm a huge Pokemon fan, so Scarlet and Violet dropped. So it's been really tough juggling all these big games and trying to find, just like a few hours to set aside to at least humor playing them for anywhere from 3-4 hours at any given time. But that's where we're at so far. Total completion 85%. I've said before that I really want to get this above 90, and I'm getting there, slowly but surely. And if I just work on the unearned trophies instead of doing brand new games to a full 100, at some point I'll finally get it. And then games played 300, completed 215. I mean, I'm really getting there. It's looking good. Overall, pretty pleased with how I've been doing so far. But this is one of those videos where absolutely it's something where I want to hear from you. So what have you been playing? What kind of platinums you've been unlocking outside of PlayStation? I don't care. What have you been up to? And I'm always looking for recommendations, especially because it is around that time where a lot of folks asked, are you going to do another 30 Platinums video? Not this year. If you remember, there was a year gap between part 1 and part 2. That's what we're going to do for this time around, obviously, so nothing this year. But assuming all goes according to plan, yeah, definitely going to attempt one again next year. But, recommendations obviously go a long way, and, it's always fun just reading that stuff. But otherwise, thank you so much for hanging out with me, talking with me, listening, and if you haven't just yet, please consider subscribing for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter, @MysticRyan, and that is it. I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.